Everyone has moments in life they can't just stop thinking about. They can be embarrassing things, like that one time you face planted in front of a group of teenagers, or something amazing like the first time you hosted your family for the holidays. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
In each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Lindsay Traves. You've seen her writing all over the internet, from Bloody Disgusting to Slash Film to IGN to Pajiba, among many others. You can also hear her as the co-host of the Pod and the Pendulum podcast. Yay, Lindsay! Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I was really amped up when Terry messaged me to ask me to show up. So I'm very excited to be here.
I have been so excited to talk to you because I didn't know and we'll get to this movie in a bit. I didn't know what movie you're going to choose, but I do remember you talking on Twitter at one point about Mant from Matinee.
Yeah. And
so I immediately, whenever I see something on Twitter, I immediately make a mental note of it, of like this, when we talk, I got to ask about this one, but I'm really excited.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was definitely like a runner-up for this.
Yeah, and I really want to see, because I've never seen Matinee, and I do want to see that movie at some point.
I'm not even convinced I've seen it more than the clip within a clip, because again, like the extended story is that until like 3 years ago, I thought I'd seen The Fly. But I had not. I had seen the parody of The Fly contained within Matinee called Mant.
I love that like, when your brain does that, where you're like, I've seen this thing, and you're like, absolutely fucking not. No, I have not. Like, why did my brain think that? It's so funny.
I like can't explain to you the feeling of being like, oh, let me call up that scene because this is such a funny story. And then I like couldn't find it. I was like, no, the original Fly's in black and white. And everyone was like, well, it definitely is not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, no, you're thinking of the remake, but the original is black and white. It's not. It was never in black and white. That was Mant, a fake parody movie that scared me.
Love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so take us back to the beginning, though. How did you get introduced to horror?
Good question. I think I was like always the casual horror fan and like the mainstream horror fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw Joyride and House of Wax in theaters and things like that. But I never like identified, feels like the wrong word, but I never like identified as a horror fan. I never thought I was any more of a fan than anyone else. I just like kind of saw the big ones when they came out. It was honestly pretty late in life. Like I was an undergrad and my roommate was gone for the summer. So I was like alone in our apartment. And I don't know why I just like decided to put on Vacancy.
Oh, I do remember Vacancy.
Oh my God, Vacancy.
Like love that movie. So good.
Under discussed horror movie featuring Luke Wilson and Kate Beckinsale.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. So I was like, maybe I'll check this movie out. And it, like, really, really scared me. And I had this, like, moment of, like, wow, it was really fun being home alone and being just, like, scared out of my mind with no one around. And I just got, like, hooked on it. And then, like, the longer she was away, I just, like, wanted to watch all these scary movies at home alone at night. And then it just became my, like, regular thing. And suddenly, here I am.
Suddenly, here you are.
Yeah, like, who knew?
Vacancy. I haven't seen that one in a long time, but I remember I saw that one in the theaters, and I remember really enjoying that one.
Yeah, I saw that one in the theaters too, actually. I was probably too young, like, shouldn't have been seeing it in the theaters. I don't remember, actually. When did that come out? I don't even remember.
It's like...
But so...
I would have been like, I don't know.
But did you ever watch, like, horror movies as like, when you were younger? Or, like, as a kid? Or, like, do you remember, like, your first horror movie you ever saw?
I was into, like, gateway horror always. Like, I liked Hocus Pocus.
Hell yeah,
and I liked, I don't know, like, Are You Afraid of the Dark was, like, Canadian culture. Like, it's, like, basically, it's, like, taught in schools. But, so, like, I was always into that. I, like, read the Goosebumps books. So, like, I always, like, I don't know. It's one of those things I just, like, didn't notice how much I liked it until I started reflecting on it later in life. And I was like, oh, you always liked scary stuff. Like, I never, like, noticed that.
Right.
Until I, like, got hooked. But, yeah, definitely gateway horror. What's the first horror movie I ever saw? So, like, okay, so the, like, extension of the Mant story is that, and I've told this before, so, like, sorry to the, like, overlapping audience that is like, yes, we know. But I'm not a good sleeper. I've always had trouble sleeping my whole life. And I used to, like, keep my parents up all night because I was like, I can't sleep. And they were like, figure it out. So they eventually...
Parents, figure your shit out. I can't help you.
They were like, I don't know what to do, like, with this. It's nighttime. So my parents got me a TV. They were like, if you can't sleep, watch TV. And I was like, okay. And, at first it was books, but then they were like, you're straining your eyes trying to read, like, Archie comics by your nightlight. So they got me a TV. And there's only, like, a couple things that are on, like, basic cable at midnight. Softcore porn.
Yep.
And horror movies, like B TV horror movies. So I would watch these, and, like, my parents, like, I shared a wall with my parents. Like, I couldn't, like, have the TV blaring. So I would just, like, stay up all night watching horror movies on mute. So, like, I had, like, no idea what was going on. Like... and would just, like, watch these horror movies on mute. So that's literally what happened is I guess I fell asleep watching Matinee.
Matinee on mute.
On mute.
I love that you're like, I didn't watch horror movies as a kid, but you fell asleep watching B horror movies on mute. Like, that's incredible.
Like that, I was just like, okay, so definitely Matinee was one of the early ones for me. Yeah, because it was just like what's on. I'm like trying to think of like other examples. Like as I got older, I remember like watching Phantoms on mute, but that was probably a little bit later.
Oh, Phantoms.
But I honestly like didn't know what they were. It wasn't like now where like you see the guide and you know exactly what you're watching. You're just like, oh, channel 7, and it's
You'd have to like switch to the TV guide channel to figure out what's.
Yeah, so I was just like watching like whatever was on like CBS at midnight. I don't know.
That's amazing.
I don't know what basic cable channels there were, but I was just like watching those on mute for like 20 random minutes while I tried to fall asleep. So like, I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yep.
So, you talked about the gateway horror and stuff. Did you ever really get scared? I mean, obviously, besides the two we're talking about, were you a scared kid when you watched horror movies?
Yes and no. So like, yeah, like notoriously, I'm like terrified of the Crimson Clown, which is notoriously, I'm the only one who knows this. Not notoriously at all. I'm really scared of the Crimson Clown, which is an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that like absolutely ruined my life.
Yeah.
Totally terrified of it. And again, being that it's Canadian culture, like all the actors like lived in my town, and I met the kid from the Crimson Clown ripping my ticket at the movie theater, and I was like terrified. And he was like, I did that like 8 years ago.
That's
and you're like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
You've ruined my life.
He's like, yeah, I did 3 episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, and I'm ripping tickets at the Cineplex, and I have a fan. So like, love this guy. So I wonder what he's up to. Yeah, Crimson Clown really scared me. My brother was really scared of all the Mummy episodes of both Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? So like all the doll and mummy stuff was, but I don't know, it didn't scare me that much, but it did. So yeah, I definitely got scared. I wasn't like hardened by the gateway horror. I was very much like into like, oh my God. But I did not like the Crimson Clown. Every time it came on, I was like, bummer, I have nothing to do tonight because I can't watch that episode.
And so do you still get scared now as an adult watching horror movies? I know you kind of like talked about how you started really watching them and like really loved being that feeling of being scared, but now do you still get scared?
Yes. Like,
hell yeah.
Very much. Yeah.
Love that.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, it's funny because people always say like, I'm sure you have heard this a million times, both of you, like, how do you watch horror? Like, I get so scared. And I'm like, yeah. Like, yeah, same.
That's-
like, I don't know.
that's
I
the
definitely
point.
still get really scared. Obviously, like, maybe I'm desensitized to, like, certain things because we've seen so much of it that, like, I might be like, oh, cool, this gore is so calming. But in general, yeah, there are certain, and there's, like, specific, like, subtypes and things that scare me more than others.
Like what?
Home invasion, I have a very low tolerance for.
Ah, yes.
I'll still watch it, but it really scares me. Like, were you two ever into American Horror Story?
Yeah, for a bit, yeah.
Okay, so like season 1, the
Yeah.
high we've been chasing for 9 seasons.
I mean, I will say that we kind of we got that a little bit in season 2. I
agree.
love season 2, but
I
yes,
agree, I
you're
agree.
right. That is a high that has not been satisfied.
Yeah. I feel like in season 1, you can tell a lot about a person by what their scariest episode was, because I feel like each episode kind of like picked on a different type of horror.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that might be like a really obvious thing that everyone knows, but that's just like something I've always kind of thought.
Never think
And
about that.
for me, it's the home invasion episode. It like, I can't, like, it just absolutely messes me up. So like anytime someone just like breaks through a door and they're like in the house, they like tie people up, stabbing people, it's just, oof.
So The Strangers, your favorite
Oh my God,
movie.
that movie, absolutely wrecked me. Like, just terrifying. Like, I think that's one of the scariest movies that's like come out that I like recall seeing in theaters.
Yeah, that movie is intense. Do you remember the last film that you saw that really scared you?
Last film I saw that really scared me. Oh my gosh, such a good question. What's recent? Ooh, last film that really scared me. That's such a good question. I wish I had a really quick answer. I don't know if this is the last one, because another thing, I don't like storms. Weather scares me. So I would say Crawl got to me a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Kind of a home invasion movie, too.
It like follows a lot of the same, beats as a home invasion movie. I'm sure I have a better answer than that, though. But yeah, definitely Crawl really got to me because I'm scared of storms.
That's fair. That's fair. I'd be scared of alligators in my house. So
I'm like gator I can handle,
but that's storm.
I'm not going outside. Lock me in the house with the animal.
Yep.
That is a movie as well called, is it Bright? There's like
The
there's a
tiger?
movie where a woman is trapped in a house with a tiger.
I think that's
Like
right.
literally trapped in a house. with a
Yeah.
tiger.
Huh. I'll take that over a hurricane like all day long.
Burning Bright.
Oh, Burning Bright. Okay. And so what are some of your favorite horror movies as an adult, and your favorite subgenres that you love to watch?
Great question. I love slashers. Even though I'm like scared of home invasions, slashers generally don't scare me.
Okay.
And I just find them like super comforting. Like I love the Friday the 13th series because I think that like kill compilations are just really comforting. Scream is my favorite horror movie, which I know is like, what's your favorite scary movie? Scream, so meta. Oh my god. Scream.
But it's good.
Scream is my favorite. But it's good.
It is
I really
good.
like sci-fi horror, so Aliens are two of my favorite movies as well.
Do you have a favorite between those two?
You know what? It's actually really hard, and I think if you like ask me 2 days in a row, you'd probably get 2 different answers. It's like they're like 1A, 1B. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Same. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Whichever one I saw last is probably my favorite.
Yeah. I think they're just totally different. It's
Yeah,
like
they're
it's
so
not.
different.
Yeah, they're totally different movies. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of faves. I really like. I don't know. Is Donnie Darko a horror movie? I really like Donnie Darko. I don't know if it's a horror movie.
I think it's definitely genre.
That movie scared the shit out of me when I was in 5th grade.
It's got a scary point. It's like it's grim.
Yeah, I didn't understand it, but that bunny rabbit really fucked me up.
Frank
Frank is
terrifying. I got really
terrifying.
sick Frank earrings this year that I just like can't. Remember when you were like, you got your Blair Witch ones and I was like, I already bought too many? It's because I got Frank earrings like the same week.
Okay, that's awesome. Horror, the horror acrylic earrings is my new fucking kryptonite. It's a problem.
I got 2 pairs in the mail today, and my giant axes that say Red Rum came the day
I
before
saw
that.
that on,
Like,
I saw
and I was
that on Twitter.
obsessed. I'm obsessed with them.
can't stop. cannot stop buying horror acrylic earrings.
That are like the size of my neck, but I don't give a shit because they're incredible and they're incredible statements. And I love them so much.
They're the new billboard space. We used to wear graphic tees or whatever. We're so like on our like, you know, in our small square that I'm like, I need new billboard space, and it's now dangling from my ears.
It's an incredible way to describe it.
It really is.
Wow.
I'm here for it. Okay, so on the creative side of things, when did you start writing? How did you get interested in writing about film?
I've always been like the kid who wanted to write and the kid who wanted to write film, not so much write about film. And then kind of like a formative moment for me, like not to give him that much credit, just kidding, he was dope. My high school philosophy teacher one day was just like he was just like that teacher who just like was never having it and like wheeled in the TV, this guy. So he was this guy. And he wheeled in the TV one day in philosophy class and we watched The Matrix. And then he was like, I want you talking about the like philosophical, like pick something we've learned this year and like write about it like as it manifests in The Matrix. So suddenly I was like applying my philosophy stuff to a movie and I was like, okay, this rocks. And so that was like all I wanted to do all the time. In undergrad, I studied philosophy and I wrote my like paper on the metaphysics of Schwarzenegger movies, which was like the most fun.
That's so cool.
Like, it's like,
So
that's the best.
cool.
And my prof was like half having it, half not. Like he was like, I love this, but also your citation is a YouTube clip from the 6th day.
You're like, yeah, it is. What of it?
Yeah, I'm like, get on my level. So yeah, I always like I just really liked doing that. And then I kind of, when I was working, very much not in writing or film, I would like take like night classes in screenwriting because I just like knew I wanted to do something in that realm and something creative. I thought I wanted to write movies. And maybe I still do, who knows, but I thought I wanted to like write things, but then I don't know, I just was like, cool. I started going to a lot of film festivals. I'm so lucky where I am. We have so many really great local film festivals. And so I started like blogging about the ones that I liked to see. And then yeah, it kind of, I just pushed for it and here I am. Like it took some time to figure it out and realize that my blog was fine but not great, and to learn what to do, and here I am.
That's awesome.
Are you still interested in writing movies, or is that kind of faded to the background?
Nothing would make me happier than someone being like, yes, Lindsay, finish your script, we're gonna make it. For sure. It's not something I like spend my time focusing on. I haven't like sat down and like my like final draft probably expired 5 years ago and like who knows. But I love it. I love the idea of creating. I think the reason why I really like film is I always like wanted to write, and I used to write like short stories and things like that and thought I wanted to write a novel when I was an undergrad. But I noticed that my strength is dialogue. Movies are just like so conducive to that because you're doing so much more like dialogue writing. You're not filling in not setting the stage in the same way. And so I think it just kind of like happened that way, that I just like loved writing scenes and dialogue, and it would be very cool.
I feel the same way because I remember in high school I really was very like wrote a lot of creative short stories. I had a novel that I was trying to write, and I'd get to about like, I don't know, page 135 of it, and I'd be like, I'm bored. Whereas a script, that's like a fucking 2-hour movie. So it's like you can write 90 pages and be done, and it's mostly dialogue. Hello.
Unreal. Like the best and most script edits are like, delete this. You're like, no problem. And next time I just won't write it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we had Mike on. He talked a little bit about the Pod and the Pendulum, but I want to hear from you about the Pod and the Pendulum. I know because you've come in as a newer co-host, so tell us about the Pod and the Pendulum and what you do on that podcast.
Sure. The Pod and the Pendulum. I think our tagline is like, we watch your franchise one installment at a time, whether we like it or not. So the whole concept is that we pick a franchise and we start from the top and we make our way all the way through it. Usually one episode per movie. Sometimes it's split, but that kind of thing. And yeah, it's really fun. We get to do like really cool deep dives. I think what's cool is we tend to get fans of each installment to show up. So we're never like coming from a place of like, this installment sucked and let's get through it. It's very much like, get the person that has something cool to say about it and kind of talk about it. And we just try to have a lot of fun. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Both of you joined us. Mary Beth, I think you joined me for like the episode that I still feel like I was the most lethargic for. I was just like, I don't know, I'm out of my element. And Mary Beth did a lot of heavy lifting.
Which one?
But
was that Martyrs?
You did. I think it was Martyrs.
It was Martyrs.
Yeah.
I was like, what was that? Yes, that was Martyrs.
Yeah, and I wish I watched with no subtitles because my subtitles weren't working. And so, listen, I did not. I was not the greatest host that episode. It was not my greatest work.
I remember having a good time, so it's fine.
Well, that's good. I mean, just joking. It's our best episode. You should look it up. But anyway, Mary Beth absolutely slayed it. She was so interesting that I like genuinely after I was like, oh my God, I have to like write her a thank you note because she just like raised it up. Like just huge. So anyway, love that one. Came out really well. But yeah, I don't know if you heard, we're like kind of on a restructuring hiatus situation right now. So you can dig in. We have so many episodes. I think we have like 150 episodes plus I think like 40 Patreon episodes. So there's so much really excellent content that you should absolutely dig into, especially if you have like a franchise you love. I had a lot of fun doing, let's see, we did so many. We had a lot of fun with the Conjuring verse. I really, really loved doing that because not everyone loves every installment and I do. So I got to like really hype them up. And we just like, yeah, we've got like a lot of really cool gems in there. So you should check them out.
Cool.
That's awesome.
So, okay. Now let's get to the good, the really, really good stuff. Lindsay, what movie did you bring with you today?
It's like hard for me to even say.
Oh no.
Which is so silly. It's so embarrassing. I'm so excited. The movie that I brought today is I don't even know anything about it because I've been avoiding it so much that I can't even like give you like a fun intro. So I'm just going to tell you the title. It is Amityville 1992. It's About Time.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar, which I'm thinking probably a lot of us are, I'll give you a brief synopsis of the film. An architect brings home a mysterious old clock, not knowing that it's haunted by the demonic presence of the Amityville house. Soon, the clock begins to alter time and space and starts to possess members of the household. So,
yeah,
Lindsay, this has like traumatized you beyond belief from what I have gleaned from the internet.
Yeah.
And so why? I want to hear like how you first saw this movie. What about it scared you so much? Like, tell us your horror story about this film, if you can.
I can get there. I can do it. It's funny that you say like you don't think people have like really heard of it, and I had like hoped that I would live a life free of this movie, having it being lost in obscurity. And one day I like opened my Shudder app and it was like movies you should check out or whatever the titles are in Shudder, and it was like it all came like rushing back to me, and I was like, how could they do something like this to me? Like I thought this was like a movie that like no one would ever know existed, and I was accosted by it on the Shudder app. I saw this movie at Stephanie's sleepover party in grade 7.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie. How you been? Been a while, Steph. Shout out to your sick parents who rented this movie. So we were in grade 6 or 7, probably 7 because Steph switched schools, and I'm pretty sure she switched in grade 7. Might have been grade 6. And, she wanted us to all get to know each other. And so she had a sleepover, as we all did.
Uh-huh.
And her parents like, we rented a scary movie. And I was like, cool, I can handle this in front of like all my cool grade 6 friends and the cool new girl everybody wants to be friends with. And it was a horror show, just an absolute nightmare that absolutely wrecked my life. You two have now seen it. And I guess we're just like, no spoiler.
Oh,
no
like we're going for it, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Very early in the movie, there's a gross dog death. And I think it just like sets the tone. Like we were so young and we all had dogs and her dog was there. And there was this like terrifying, gross dog death. And it was like that just like set the tone for what was next. And it scared me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remembered everything. Rewatching it, I was like, I remember every beat except one, which we'll get to. I remember every beat and was like, that scared me, and that scared me, and that scared me.
So it's just like a running tally of scary scenes, just constantly
Just
traumatizing
brutal.
you.
Yeah, and I know you're not going to believe this part, but so my parents that night went to like I don't even remember. I should actually have asked them before this, and they'll probably be like, we have no idea what you're talking about. But they were at something, and they bought me a new clock.
No!
And when I came home, I swear, when I came home, terrified, like, we got you a new clock, and I stared at that fucking thing.
No.
I put it, I kept lifting it up because I wanted to make sure that it didn't, like, drill into the wall, you know?
Yeah.
Because I, like, didn't trust it.
Shut up!
I swear. Oh God, I remember it was like a tiny little, like, black, like, it was an analog clock, is that what they're called? An analog clock that was, like, tiny and black on, like, a swivel. And, yeah, they were like, oh, we got this new clock for you. And I was like, wow, this is the worst. And I was so scared of it. But, like, also, my, like, weird angst made me, like, completely unable to tell my parents that I didn't want the clock. I just, like, kept it and kept checking to make sure that it didn't drill through my house. Yeah. I was like, okay.
Oh my God, Lindsay.
Yeah, real. So it just absolutely ruined me.
Wow. So I had never heard of this movie until you brought it up.
Lucky you. You're welcome.
And boy, oh boy, it is fucking something. Also, this is quite a movie to watch at a slumber party because it's pretty horny.
It's super horny.
It's super horny.
I have like a running, like, I will always mention that siblings in movies, like, no one who's ever written, acted, or directed a sibling in a movie has a sibling in real life because they always flirt with each other. Always.
Okay, so the scene where I think the sister is with her boyfriend and the brother is watching them and is like, oh, romance is so disgusting. I'm like, are you jealous of him? Aren't you her brother? I was so confused by that. I was like, did I miss something here? Like, what is this dynamic between the two of them?
Every movie. I don't understand. The only realistic siblings in film history are Donnie Darko and his sister, because they were real siblings. They're the only time I've ever seen siblings and been like, yes, correct. Every other time they like have like knowing glances and they like rub heads. You're like, what? I just finished watching You and she's in the bath with her brother like hugging naked.
Okay. I just got to that scene. I just got to that scene in the third season where she's like imagining him and I'm like, what? What is going on here?
Wow. I'm telling you, no sibling in history, in film history or TV history. The Walshes from 90210 would like give each other like fuck me eyes like the whole time, and they would like sit on each other's laps. And never in my life,
never in my entire life with my two brothers have ever. No, I just like again, like you said, Donnie Darko. How does one suck a fuck? And they're yelling at each other at the dinner table, like
You're that. Like, that's right,
exactly that.
Yeah. So it is super horny. And the brother, like, so the moment, like, that part, but also when the sister comes in and she's, like, just turned evil and she's all hot and he's like, hello. No, that's not a thing.
Yeah, I was like, I took a note on that part. I was like, what is happening in this movie?
Yeah.
Well, she puts her tongue.
And then, of course, it becomes literal because she's, like, literally coming on to him and licking his ear.
Yes. I think in his ear. Like, his ear canal. Just probing it for wax. I'm so sorry. That was disgusting. I apologize that I said that. Anyway, but also, before we go like to the end of the movie, there also is the very, very sweaty sex scene at the beginning between the dad and his ex-girlfriend, Andrea. But the dynamic of this whole movie is fascinating. Like the family dynamic here, because it's the dad who is an architect. He has two kids, and then the ex-girlfriend, babysat the kids basically, and their mom passed away. And then Andrea lived with them for a couple of years, then moved out, but now she's back. So I thought that was a very interesting, just like weird dynamic of romance going on in this film.
I was really confused about her relationship to Jacob. She's his ex. They're fucking. She's inserting herself in the family while telling him that she doesn't want to be part of the family. She's has a boyfriend. They're fucking. She's mad that he's pulling him back into the family. Then she's like saying, oh, poor baby. Oh, honey, while pouring peroxide on his leg. I'm like, I don't understand this dynamic between the two of them. Maybe adult relationships are messy. Yes. But like, I don't get this.
It's weird because it's just like, why? Like, why when they were writing it, they were like, here's the twist.
Right.
Well, and like she gets Girlfriend of the Year award though, because she really, and to a fault though, because the fact that she stayed for all of this and was like, boundaries, friends. Like we need to put up boundaries. And she was like, no, okay, I'll take you to the hospital and stay on your couch for 3 days after you get attacked by a dog, which we will talk about. And just, like, the shit that she goes through this entire movie for this man who ain't shit. Like, let's just be honest here. Like, this man ain't shit. Wild what she goes through for this man. It's not even her house. It's not her kids. It's just like, house. What in the hell? You don't even live there. I don't know. It just baffled my mind the entire movie. I was like, would you just leave?
The best is that the only time she gets mad is, like, the only time it's not reasonable to be mad. So, like, everything that happens, she's just like, oh, stop flirting with me. I need to go home. And then he, like, tries to kill her and she's like, oh, I still love you. But then the part where she gets mad is when he's, like, completely incapacitated in the hospital and she has to drive him home. He is completely incapacitated. His leg has been shredded and he's, like, drugged up and she's like, you
how dare you, and, like, pull me back into this.
That's when she gets mad. She's like, I'm leaving.
How dare you? This is just like always like our relationship where I have to come back and take care of you. I'm like, dude, he did just get attacked by a dog. Like, this one.
You were just fucking the night before too.
Like, yeah, and I just have to reiterate how sweaty that scene was. Like, in a way that is like, in a way that I was like, this is so unnatural, it's distracting. It looks like you dipped them in water and then had them have sex. And I was like, I was
just imagining some poor gaffer on the thing just going
like, yeah,
this entire time. He's like, is this good? No, sweatier.
More wet.
There's also, like, to reference another movie that absolutely scarred me, there's, like, the billowing sheets that remind me of that sex scene in Audition.
Oh my god, like, yes.
You know, and it pans inward with these, like, billowing curtains. And I'm like, what is this guy's face? An architect. This is his bedroom choice? Okay. These, like, billowing, I don't know. It's bizarre.
And another very tiny detail that first stuck out. He falls asleep in the most awkward position with his neck on the pillow. Like, he just passes out. And everything about that scene is just so awkward and, like, feels like someone who, like, has watched a lot of porn but maybe has never had sex with a woman before.
Right.
And, like, not to be rude and, like, live your life, but also, like, this is a very weirdly written scene.
Well, and the conversation that's happening at the same time where she's complaining that she can't compete with a dead woman, like, with the kids, and then he makes a comment about, and I had to write this down, I hate having regret for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah. When they're, like, in the, like, when he's, like, turning on music or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, that whole sequence is just, I was so confused as to what is happening. Are these real people?
Incredible.
Do you two ever watch those, like, made-for-TV thrillers on TV ever? I can't even, like, think of an example because it's, like, again, something you watch, like, on TV and you just, like, get, like, lost on a Sunday.
That are, like,
I guess they're Lifetime.
Well, my friend went through a phase of watching them and texted me while he was watching them with his wife. And there was one that was incredible about, like, a woman and her daughter and text. I don't know. But yes, I am very aware of how weird
they're always called, like, the bad son who lives next door. Like, they're, like, these, like, I don't know. I think they might be Lifetime. We don't have Lifetime, so I, like, whatever. So, but I assume it's the same thing. Because, like, what I know about Lifetime movies, I'm like, yes, same thing.
Yeah.
So we have them on, like, ABC Spark. I don't know. So, yeah, anyway, those movies always start with a sex scene in, like, the first, like, 10 minutes that, like, has nothing to do with anything. So it kind of reminded me of that. I was like, maybe this is, like, a made-for-TV thriller that just went too far.
Well,
I mean, this was released directly to video. I say VOD. It was released to VHS
VOD.
back in 1992. Although apparently in the Philippines, it was released in the movie theaters.
What?
Random.
That's
that was on IMDb or
incredibly
Wikipedia.
random.
So random and sucks for them.
And it was called The Curse of Amityville: The Final Chapter.
Uh-oh.
I don't think it actually was the final chapter. I think there
Never
might
in
be.
the history of final chapters has the final chapter been the final chapter.
Oh, never.
No.
But so it's,
Not even
and
once.
it's funny because this introduction is just, like, so campy and weird, and then but then I was like, but then it gets really fucked up, like, the next morning when he goes for the run, and that's when the dog attack happens, and that's when I was like, wait, hold on, what kind of movie is this? Like, I'm very confused. But I know that Terry, we talked about this a little bit about the dog attack scene. Peaches, the German Shepherd.
So This was my first watch as well, but watching this movie, it brought back two kind of bad memories for me. And the first one is being attacked by a German Shepherd, because that scene was very vicious, and it was so fucking vicious. And it reminded me of like when I was attacked by a German Shepherd. I was 13. I might have told the story when we talked to April Wolf on with Cujo. I can't remember, the podcast brain, but I was like 13. I was a mail delivery kid, and the one neighbor across the street wanted me to pick up flyers and deliver them around the neighborhood as well. He was going to pay me. So I went to their house, went inside. They had a German Shepherd. They put him in the garage. The wife went upstairs to go get the husband. And as she was left and I was standing in the doorway, the dog jumped down the door and went lunging for my throat. Yeah, my arm was in the way. I have two scar marks, two bite marks. You won't be able to see on my camera of where the dog went for my throat, but my arm was in the way. I was 13.
Oh my goodness.
And that
Good
was
instinct.
the second time I was bit by a dog.
Jesus Christ, Terry.
Because when I was like 8, I was bitten by a Doberman Pinscher that bit my back.
Oh my God. Wow, you got like the two big scary dogs.
The two.
The two.
Uh-huh.
The two, they both bit you.
And so watching this scene, because this scene is very vicious. It's surprisingly vicious, but particularly as the dog's going for the guy's thigh, I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen that in cinema. Biting the leg, yes. Biting like the, your pants or that kind of thing, yes. But the thigh, like it was going to town on that poor man.
I legitimately
brought that
thought
memory
like
back.
his leg he was not going to have a leg, because the way they zoom in on like the dog tearing into his leg, it looks like it's no longer attached to his body.
It's like shredded off his body.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, is he, like, I assumed he was not going to have a leg by the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's vicious.
And like Peaches is introduced at the beginning, because Peaches, I love the name Peaches, by the way, especially for a German Shepherd. Like what? Like it's just so
Hilarious.
funny.
It's very funny.
Peaches appears at the beginning of the movie and just runs into their house and barks at the clock. Which I was like, wait, is Peaches... I, again, didn't know if Peaches was their dog or just some random neighborhood dog.
My first note was that Peaches was their dog, so I just assumed it was their dog. And then he's like, you don't belong here. And I'm like, oh.
Like,
so just
he opens the door
let
for
dogs in your
Peaches
house.
to come in and bark at the clock, and then for Peaches to leave. And I was like, I mean... I'd love to have a dog drop by and say hey and leave my house, but also that's a little bizarre that your dog is just roaming the neighborhood. But hey, what can you do?
The dog scene confuses me. I'm curious y'all's take on this. I'm like I'm like the person who like wants to figure out the internal logic. And I can never, like, the clock makes the house do a lot of things, which we'll definitely get into. And it makes the girl, the sister, an evil version of herself, and the dad, an evil version of himself. They do leave the house, but mostly while they're in the house is when things are happening. Like, they don't have these, like, powers until they're in the house. But, like, what is up with Peaches and that woman being, like, outside, nowhere near the house, and that interference, and then them being like, oh, that never happened?
That is a great question, because I also was thinking...
There not being any wounds.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly, because he hits Peaches with the bottle to get her off of him, and so when Andrea goes and says, hey, Mrs. Tepman, like, does your dog have vaccines? Like, is your dog okay? And she goes, what the fuck are you talking about? Which then got into my head of, like, what actually happened? Was it actually Peaches? Was it actually Mrs. Tepman? Like, what is what
are the rules?
Yeah, what are the rules? Because, like you said...
I don't think this movie knows what the rules are.
Everything else seems pretty consistent, though.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, because I was thinking about that at the end, like, wait, like, as silly as parts of this movie are, there is kind of, like, a relatively understandable logic in terms of, like, the clock has drilled itself into the mantelpiece, and, like, it is infecting the house and the people that live here. Also, it literally drills itself into the mantelpiece, everybody. It's incredible. Yeah. And I didn't understand, like, the purpose of him getting bitten. Like, was that, like, in my head, it was like he was getting infected that way. I don't know how, because it doesn't necessarily make sense, but that was, like, an infection moment. Again, logically does not really make sense, but...
It just felt like an Omen fan moment. Like, they were just like, there's gonna be a scary dog in this movie, too. Like, because this movie's super, like, even though it's an Amityville ish movie. It's very like Poltergeist.
Yes.
It's very Poltergeist, yeah.
That opening is very Poltergeist, especially with like the tract houses and like the new phase is coming and he's like an architect, like and you have the dog that runs in and is barking. Like there's definite like moments that I'm like, okay, this is totally cribbing from Poltergeist.
100%. So I just kind of like, I like watched that moment and I was like, I feel like it's just like a couple of like horror references. But it doesn't make sense in the logic of the movie for me.
Well, and then it also apparently can possess a ice cream van.
Right, yeah. That was also out of the house, which is like weird.
That was my favorite scene in the entire movie because, so it's the neighbor. What is her name again?
Iris.
I forget her name.
Iris.
Okay.
Yeah.
Iris Wheeler.
Yeah, Mrs. Wheeler.
Is she having an affair with Rusty? What is their relationship?
That was another weird thing. So, like, Rusty is the metalhead son who loves watching, like, metal on his little TV, and Iris Wheeler is the old neighbor, and he skipped school to play chess with her, and, like, I thought they were going to have sex at one point, because that's kind of the vibe that we got.
Me too.
But she somehow knows everything about ghosts all of a sudden and, like, sees the house in the beginning transform into the Amityville house and doesn't really say anything until Rusty says something. Like, she just watches it happen and she goes,
she's like, yeah, I've been known.
All right, cool. And then, like, goes away. But her role, I loved her, though. I thought she was incredible.
Me too.
I want a whole movie about her because I feel like she has a story. But she dies in an unfortunately funny way where, like, she's walking down the street, her cane gets stuck.
In Ghostbusters ooze.
Yes!
In the street.
And then she gets hit by the van.
It's so scary.
But then the best part, she gets hit by the van and just lays on the ground and she goes, just leave me here.
Yeah, she's like, I'm fine.
And laughs maniacally, just
she's a whippersnapper. She's like, yeah, she's that archetype. I'm picturing Now and Then. They have that like spiritual woman they visit. She's like that. She's the guide. And then I feel like it also, not to like keep bringing it up, it's not just because I watched it like 3 times this month, or last month, but also like the Donnie Darko bit where they're like, crazy miss, like Donnie is like, I'm attuned to something and I need to talk to this woman because she's attuned to it too. Mm-hmm. It really kind of felt like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like on the sun thing, what upset me is like there are like one large and one tiny detail that I forgot about this movie out of like everything. I completely wiped the sun from my memory completely, which I don't know how I like completely forgot he was in this movie at all. And it's bizarre because like that is the dude I would have absolutely had a crush on in grade 7. Like that
Me
is
too.
like, that is some John Connor ass shit that I would have been like absolutely climbing the walls for. And it's wild to me that I was like so scared of this movie that I like erased him from my memory. Like I wasn't even like, oh, there's a hot hero.
You're like I can't even have any positive association with this movie.
He's like the main character. Well, like one of the main
dangling
characters.
Earring.
Oh, it's dangling.
Oh my god, the earring and the haircut.
That sort of grunge look.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I was here for it. I was
oh
like,
my
yeah,
god,
would have had a huge crush on this kid growing up.
huge. And I did not remember that he existed. So his relationship with that woman, like I was like, who do I remember her talking to? Like I don't know. But she has like all her like occult books, and she's like, you saw this mantle with the thing? Let me grab the book that has the image that I completely recall off the top of my head.
Like an incredible archetype in horror of just like, oh yes, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of all of my occult library and I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's like, yep, that's
But
it.
I did love that she calls, because like at one point she's talking about this French, like he's seeing into the past in France, I guess, of this like torture room, and she talks about this necromancer, but then she says that a necromancer is French for someone who eats the dead, and that's
It's not true.
not true.
I know she said that and I was like, you know what? We're just gonna glaze over that.
We're just gonna let it go.
Let that one go. But okay, so I've seen like the original Amityville Horror and I've seen the remake with Ryan Reynolds with his shirt off. Is there like is there a mythology like that established in like the other movies of the Amityville series? Like, did I miss something?
That's literally what I was going to ask you, because I was so scared of this movie that I never saw the Ryan Reynolds one because it was too adjacent. that I was like, shirtless Ryan Reynolds will not sell me because if there's a friggin' clock, it will ruin my life. So I never saw the Amityville movie. And as it was happening, I was like, no, but I know about Amityville tangentially I always say that word wrong because it's like the one word I never get right. Maybe there are more, but I always I know about it just a bit because of all of the Warren's research I did for like Conjuring stuff.
Yeah.
And no, I do not, like, the Amityville house was not in France. Is there some, I don't know if there's, like, connective tissue there.
In the remake, from what I remember, there is, like, a little bit more lore about, like, a guy who tortured, I think it was it indigenous people or slaves in the house, like, in the basement?
Yeah.
Is that right, Terry?
Yes.
So we watched it for the podcast, and I'm trying to remember because it was so weird. Because
in
the original,
which has absolutely nothing to do with like real life.
Yeah,
it was
the original thing was just that the son from the son killed the family, and then that family and like the original owners, and then the new family moved in. Like there wasn't any other kind of lore behind it, was there? Like about
not that I remember.
Okay,
No.
That's what I thought. That like
I don't think so I've seen the very first Amityville, the original one. I've now seen this one, and I've seen the remake. I remember as a kid wanting to see Amityville 3D because on the back there's like this gnarly, everything had to be 3D back in like the 80s.
100%.
But there was like this gnarly picture on the back of like someone, I think they were in a well, and there's like some kind of aquatic creature like grabbing him, and he's like, like that. And I remember always wanting to see that. I don't think any of the movies really had much of a continuity between the two. I think the second one is based actually on another novel about Amityville, but I think after that, I think they sort of just took the idea that this house is creepy and possession. Let's run with it. Because this movie does do that a little bit. Like it kind of brings to mind the original Amityville with like the father getting possessed by the house and going, psychotic on the family and trying to murder everyone. So, there's that kind of line. And then that what I loved is that we're at this house and I'm thinking, okay, we're in California, and I see the two like windows, and it's like, okay, so they're obviously trying to like bring us back to the Amityville on the East Coast. And I think that might be about it.
Yeah. It almost felt like one of those like, what do they call it? The DTV sequels where they're like, this isn't a good enough movie, but if we just slap Amityville onto it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I have like no insight into the production of this movie, but
I take it back. I have seen Amityville 4 because in Amityville 4, there is a lamp, and the lamp is haunted, and it leaves the house. Like, I think and that's where like the evil escapes is the subtitle of that one, because the lamp has moved from that house and the ghosts followed along with it.
Terry, I have so many lamps now. I got rid of all my clocks, and now I've got to deal with lamps.
This is like another creepy kind of. I remember it being a kind of a creepy lamp.
There's another one I just saw where it's a mirror. It's like,
oh my god, don't! I can't. Okay.
Sorry.
I have like I don't know if I'm like skipping ahead, so stop me if I'm skipping ahead and like in a thread that you have going. So to me, one of the scariest things, and I don't know like what came first, is the chicken or the egg scenario. One of the scariest things for me is like when a person thinks they can get help, but help is like just out of reach. Especially when it's like kind of a trick, Mm-hmm. And that's why I like the movie Oculus, I think is one of the scariest movies recently. I don't know why I didn't think of that when you asked me. Oculus really messed me up. Specifically the scene where she like thinks she called the cops, and then the phone's like, JK bitch. Yeah. Terrifying to me. And the scene from this movie where the cops come and she's banging on one side and she's like, help, like I'm in here. And then from the other side, they see nothing.
Yep.
Whew. Scariest scene in the movie, I think, and the thing that I think about all the time. Like, to me, that's the scariest.
It's a good scene, and it's set up earlier where the daughter goes back down to the living room, and the doors slam, and she's pounding on the door, and then we get like the vision outside the door, and there's like no sounds coming out of it. So yeah, that's those were two moments that definitely stuck out to me of like being, oh, that's actually kind of inventive. And creepy.
Scary. And then just there's a mirror in the scene with the daughter, and then Oculus is a mirror, so similar. So as you said, mirrors, I was like, ooh, yeah, scary.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think there's like really any narrative thread here. I think they just kind of made that up. But I did, again, like, this movie has its weird strange moments. But again, we talked about inventiveness. That scene where Rusty is turning the light on and off and the room changes. I thought that was pretty clever and pretty freaky, of just being like, wait, the fuck? And then it doesn't happen every time he turns the light on and off, and then it does, and the light bulb shatters. And there's just these moments where, like, the house completely changes. And I've talked about this before in horror movies, like, houses that aren't what they look like, aren't what they appear to be, really scare me. I don't really know why, but, like, just the idea of having a house that looks like a normal house and then it changes, or, like, is not what it looks like on the outside. It's bigger, it's smaller, whatever, like, really gets into my head. And this made me think about this movie as a cosmic horror movie, which sounds like a very, like, elevated label for this movie. But there are these cosmic horror moments, like, where the house changes shape and size and, like, has this really weird kind of, like, everything's, like, perception of reality shifts. Like, there are multiple moments where people are like, I'm losing, like, literally just say, I'm losing my mind because things change, things appear. And I think this, like, this playing with time and space really makes this kind of have a cosmic horror vibe to me, which was a pretty surprising thing while watching it. But that moment where Rusty's turning the light on and off really got me thinking about that. And as the movie continues, I think there's, like, a kind of an interesting cosmic horror incomprehensibility vibe going through this that I found really interesting.
Yeah. Shortly after the light scene, I mean, I think it's shortly after, he loses time. Like, he leaves the room and comes back, and they're like, where'd you go? And he's like, what? Oh, that's when the light scene happens, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I can't remember. I already forget. But that's weird that I can't remember that. Oh, God.
You lost time. Oh, God.
It's happening.
Oh, God.
It's happening. It's been 5 hours.
Oh, my God.
You're back, Lindsay. Where have you been?
Oh, no. Oh, God.
Jesus.
Oh, boy. Oh, that's a nightmare. But he loses time.
I know. He comes back in and she's dressed up like she's going to bed with her hair up, and, like, she's like, yeah, dinner's in the fridge. And I was like, oh, that's kind of, it's a simple scene, but it's really effective in establishing that, like, the laws of physics do not apply to this house.
Yeah. And that always just, like, kind of gets in my head about, like, when you're home, and it's like that very, like, very cheesy thing with horror, but, like, the domestic space being terrifying. I think because, like, I was such a scared kid and home was always, like, the place where I thought I was safe. Like, that kind of stuff always really, like, fucks with my head. So I thought it was really effective in terms of making this house feel so dangerous. And, like, that the clock is literally transforming the house into something completely different. But I think it captures that kind of fear really well. And like you said, Lindsay, with the part where she's that scared the shit out of me when she's knocking on the door and they're looking through. And again, like, once again, time and space is being warped by the house, where you think, oh, I am perceiving something outside, but they are not perceiving me back. And, like, that's such a weird mindfuck that is just a horrifying thing to think about. It's just, like, that helplessness is just really harrowing.
I agree.
What I'm saying is this movie, like, fucked me up more than I expected.
This is what I'm saying.
Like, I was texting Carrie and, like, look, I get it. There's some really weird shit in this movie and it's silly, but there's also some stuff in this movie that's pretty fucked up and, like, kind of freaky. Like, so, fascinating.
Thank you for the validation.
Of course. Of course.
I appreciate it. Because I was, like, rewatching it, honestly, I was, like, traumatized so much by it that I was watching it through the lens of, like, I'm already scared of this.
Yeah.
But, like, there are some parts, like, there's a part I remember really scaring me is the part where the guy gets, like, eaten by the floor tar.
Oh my God, yes!
It scared me so much. Like, I would, like, look at the ground more because I didn't want to step in a puddle. Like, it scared me so much.
No.
But then when you watch it, he's, like, very obviously, like, wearing, like, a rubber floor. Like, you can see the seam of, like, where he is. So as much as it was, like, re-scaring me, like, I was still scared because I remember it being so scary. I was like, oh, this is pretty, like, silly and very, like, bad FX. But then there are a couple moments that I'm like, no, this movie is scary. That is a scary thing that's happening. Like, there are a few, like, legit scares.
The scene that I absolutely really loved and I thought holds up even well today is when, you know, Lisa, like, she can't sleep. She goes upstairs, says, hey, can I sleep in here with you? She's like, sure, go get your pillow. She goes downstairs. She gets trapped in the room. But then Andrea is in bed and the door opens up and she's assuming that it's Lisa coming in and you hear the squelching There's like something is squelching as it's walking toward her, gets into bed, the covers fly up, and she like reaches over in her hand, goes into that same tar that eventually would eat the underweared boyfriend. And it's really well done. And the bed sort of like, I guess there's like a shape in it, and it sort of like bulbously moves up, and then she gets up and turns on the light. Of course, there's nothing there, but like, I really like that scene. I thought that scene was really well done.
And once again, like Lisa in the room trying to get out, no one can hear her. Like that, again, that kind of like, someone should be able to hear me, but not like that moment. And like, I love me a good, and Megan Navarro just wrote an article about this actually on Bloody Disgusting, of like the background scares, like where something walks in and it's like not in focus, but I love that stuff so much. It's so effective. And also makes me terrified at night when I'm in bed and I think about that stuff where I'm like, don't move, don't think about it. Like that might just be my cat, or it could be something else. It's hard when you have pets and they do things to you in the middle of the night and you're like, is it my pet? Or is it a monster?
100%. Mary Beth, I wonder if you have the same experience with me as a glasses wearer. I was going to say that like the master, or at least the person who has exploited the background scare the most recently, is Mike Flanagan, without a doubt. And as much as like Hill House is certainly the one that pays, oh my gosh, what's the King adaptation he did? Like that's specific. What's the King adaptation he did with a married couple?
Gerald's Game.
Gerald's Game.
That's the one.
Yeah.
The thing in Gerald's Game, how she like sees a guy in the corner of her room, like story of my life. Because I'm curious, like as a glass wearer, like I can't see anything at night.
Oh, I'm wearing contacts.
Oh, you wear contacts. Okay.
So I legitimately had to fall asleep with my glasses on my face for fucking years because I was so terrified of waking up and seeing something in my room that I would fall asleep with my glasses on to make sure that like if I woke up I could see immediately, because like I'm terrified of the dark. I'm still scared of the dark. I admit it. I love horror and I'm still scared of the dark.
100%.
Whatever. But I have terrible vision, like -8, like whatever.
-6.
And so I really
I'm
can't.
in the 7s.
Oh my god, yay, terrible.
Look at us, 6, 7, 8.
Terrible vision club. But I have such a hard time seeing that. I'm so terrified that if I don't have my glasses on, like I'm dead. Like it's like 100% is like a huge fear of mine. Like I used to be scared of not having my glasses on in the fucking shower. Like if I didn't have my contacts in, I'd be scared to have my glasses off in case someone came around in the shower curtain.
Because you can't see.
You can't see.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so combine, I'm like sorry to do this to you, but I'm sure that you're already gonna be like, yes, I know. But like I have like, so in my place, I can see like my bookshelf, my like really tall, narrow bookshelf from my bed in like a distant corner. So that scene from Gerald's Game just like absolutely wrecked me, because when you don't have your glasses on and it's dark, you just see these like shadowy figures in the background.
Yep.
And I'm always like grabbing my glasses. Did you see the movie? Did you see Seance? I'm not talking about every movie.
I did.
Except
The new
this
one, the Simon Barrett movie.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's a glasses moment that's like fine. And I was like weirdly disappointed because I was like, man, it would have been really cool to have like a really good glasses scare of like a character like putting on her glasses and seeing nothing. And then like taking them off and seeing something. Like I was like, we could have had like the like lights out, how it's like the lights on, it gets closer and closer. I was like, we could have totally had a like Spider-Man on and off moment, and then there's like a scare when she puts her glasses on or something. Anyway, that's like not a part of that. It's like a very weird tangent.
I think you need to write that in a script.
I love that because that's fucking terrifying. You're like,
right.
Ugh.
You just see like shadows and your brain fills in the blanks and it's nighttime and it's dark and you're like, there's a man in here.
Yep.
And in Gerald's Game it was, and it absolutely ruined me for a while.
Yep. My cat does that where like sometimes she'll sit on like, so we have like our bed and then a bookshelf at the like right across from the bed, and my cat will sit sometimes on the bookshelf, and if I wake up and I see her, I like shit my pants a little bit thinking that I don't know what that is and it's just my cat. But like when you're like half awake and don't have your glasses on, it's dark, you're like, it's over.
That's it. This is it. It's the end.
But then like,
and then you think you're gonna put on your glasses and be fine, but like that's not true.
But then like the other thing is also I'm a dumbass and have shit like this in my house. So if I don't have my glasses on or it's dark, I'm like, well, I'm preparing myself. I'm like setting myself up for failure here. But here I am still having this stuff hanging on my walls. At least this is my office, and like I don't see this without my glasses, at least, because that would be a disaster situation.
It's no good. It's no good.
Can we talk about Leonard?
Sure.
Yeah.
The psychiatrist boyfriend.
Oh my god,
who
please can we talk about Leonard?
I think is on speed this entire movie.
I let me chime in on Leonard because I actually wrote this down and I'm actually curious. I'm not even gonna look, but I'm curious what like language I used while like frantically writing this down while scared and thinking that I was slick. His anxious Jewish representation in this movie was great. And I was thrilled to have him. I was like, oh.
He is like, I was like, borderline comedic relief a little bit, like a little bit there.
If there's one thing about Jews that I know, is that when we're nervous, which is always because we're always anxious, we speak a lot very quickly. So having some guy roll up and pretend to play it cool, but then like anxiously say so much, I was like, yeah.
I literally thought I had somehow turned it on 2 times speed. He was just like talking so fucking fast.
But
yeah.
Besides that, though, his character is fascinating. So he is psychoanalyzing every single fucking person in this house, but also at the same time is coming into this house and then having sex with his girlfriend in the house of her ex-boyfriend where she used to live.
He was staking his claim.
Taking a bath.
He was staking his claim.
It's like weird.
Taking the bath was the weird thing.
Taking the bath was a super weird thing. And like walking around in a robe, heating up food. I'm like, are you like trying to like show dominance here? Because it's really bizarre. Like again, with this movie, the romantic and parental and familial dynamics are just so bizarre. And like
that's the dichotomy between the Jewish actor and the Jewish writer. Because let me tell you, and like a non-Jewish writer, is that the Jew showed up and was like, I mean, I'm assuming that I don't know this actor at all, but I'm going to assume this Jewish guy shows up and he's like, you know, talking real fast, real nervous, real anxious. And I'm like, yes, we're seeing. He takes a bath. I'm sorry. None of us are like taking a bath in some stranger's house. I can tell you right now. It's absolutely not happening.
It's like a stranger's house, but it's also like your like girlfriend's
bizarre.
Ex's house. And you know something weird is going on because you've already had a couple experiences like at the table where he's sitting at the table thinking that the dad is pointing a gun at him. Like that was also pretty terrifying. And like
so scary.
A moment where he's like slowly breaking down and he thinks he's about to die and then all of a sudden the guy's gone. And again, like these moments in this movie are really effective in kind of creating like this feeling of madness of all of these characters. So then why did Leonard even come back? I would be like, I'm out. Like I can't.
I don't know. I'd be like, bye. Good luck with this family. I'm
out of here.
I'm out of here. They have like a romantic dinner out back.
They do.
I know.
When he's like, what do they say? They're like, oh, I love Chinese. And he's like, it's actually Laotian.
Yeah.
Love it. Loved him. Love it. Favorite character.
I also love how they're like, oh, we're having a picnic. And they're like, hey, Rusty, want to come eat with us? And I was like, who are any of you? Like, I don't understand how any of you go about interacting with the world. And that's fine. Like Terry said, relationships are messy, but these relationships are just a garbage fire.
And the dude's like trying to like psychoanalyze them. Oh god, so great.
I loved it. But I love there's one moment where he's like, she tells him that, well, I used to live here, and he's like, that's right, you used to, no more. I'm sorry, I don't mean to yell. I don't yell. How much more can you take? Like it's like the dichotomy and like the language. It's just, I'm like, this is fantastic.
But honestly, that part too, I was like, but I get that whole vibe. I get because like the anger of like, I don't want to be mad at you, but what the fuck are you doing here? Like, what is happening here? Like, why are you in this house? Like, why are you doing this? Like,
I need to like look this guy up. So I'm like so secure in my assessment, but he might just like be from New York. Like
he is from New York. I did.
Yeah. I'm like so secure in my assessment of him, but I could be very wrong. But yeah, his like real rapid talking discomfort, but trying to pretend like he's chill. I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. I've been him. Like, come to like a haunted house with me, and so I definitely scream a lot. There's no secret, but like I will speak out loud. Like I could be by myself. I do it while I'm watching scary movies. I will react to them and like nervous blabber. I'll be like in a haunted house. I'll be like, oh, okay. This is a demon. You're looking at me. That ghost. I mean, your makeup looks great. Very scary. Very afraid of what I'm seeing. Like, I will, like, narrate it.
I love that.
That's amazing.
I love that so much.
I just want a series of you doing that. I'm just like, great. Look great. Awesome. Congratulations.
Like, this is very scary. I'm very scared. I'm going to be very upset about this later. So, like,
I'm going to haunt my dreams when I try to fall asleep tonight. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Completely haunted. I know it doesn't seem like it, but let me tell you, I am haunted. So when he was talking, I was like, yes.
I know you.
Familiar. I know you.
I am you.
That's me. I am you. You are me. You are me in this house.
So the other thing that this movie, because I mentioned earlier that it gave me two bad memories. The first one was the dog, and the other one. So when I went to school, and I was a freshman in high school or in college, I wanted to be a drama teacher, and so one of the things we had to take was a course on set design, and we had to buy a lot of tools. And one of the tools that we had to buy was a T-square ruler. And this was the hardest.
So specific. It's incredible.
I know.
Like, I love how specific this entire episode is. Like, what is happening? It's so good. What the fuck is wrong with all of us?
So I had to go out and buy a T-square ruler. And
I'm crying.
I was a straight A student all throughout high school. I get to college my freshman year, and this fucking course, this fucking set design, fucking architecture light course where we had to like draw out plans for a set, and I had to use that fucking T-square ruler every week, and I got a C in the class. My only C I've ever gotten my entire educational career was in this fucking class, and all I kept thinking about was this fucking T-square ruler. And so the beginning of this movie, when she shows up holding this ornate fucking T-square ruler, I was like, no.
The rage in your voice right now is absolutely incredible. Like, the anger I feel coming out of my computer screen about, like, I just imagine her opening that door and using a T-square ruler and just standing up and, like, screaming. Just like,
I'm out.
I can't watch this movie. There's a T-square ruler.
I'm laughing because I'm so embarrassed by this selection because, like, they're both going to watch it and be like, is she okay? And I was, like, so embarrassed by it. And I was expecting you both to be like, there's nothing scary in this weird TV movie that you selected. And I love the idea of me hyping it up as much as possible. And then Terry sitting down being like, let's check this out. And immediately being like, oh my God, a very specific thing that upsets me.
I have not seen a T-square ruler in about 20 years.
But okay.
I'm sweating, Jesus Christ.
I'm literally sweating. My cheeks are like bright red. Terry, let me just say, okay. This makes so much sense in my head, and I don't know how it's gonna come out. But you know, in Halloween Kills, how they all I'm sorry. Yeah. How they all just like show up with random weapons, and one woman has an iron. You're her. You're showing up.
Fucking
T-square. Like that, you could splice. You could cut her out of this movie and put her in Halloween Kills. And that's you.
That is me. That is me.
This is unreal.
But they get so much fucking mileage out of that ruler. Like,
So much.
shows up at the beginning. Andrea's protecting herself in the opening. Jacob is using it as a cane.
I didn't even catch that. Like,
Oh my God, I'm sweating.
I was obsessed with this ruler. The moment I saw it, I was like, oh my God, is this a Chekhov's ruler? Is this going to somehow play into the story?
It deals the death blow.
It does.
It deals
First she uses it against Jacob in the climax, and then she destroys the clock with it.
That weapon deals the death blow. Oh my God, Terry, this is unbelievable. This is
incredible.
So great. I'm elated.
Wow.
By this. Whew.
Where do we go from here?
I don't know.
Also,
I'm dry.
random Dick Miller sighting.
Wait, what?
When?
Dick Miller shows up in this.
When?
He does?
Yeah, when the house gets set on fire and the neighbors come over, he's the one that's talking to is it Lisa or Andrea?
Andrea? Is he the neighbor who was like, your husband will be happy about the hedges being on fire, whatever the fuck?
Yeah, Dick Miller.
Oh.
Random.
Huh. Do you know what I was thinking? The dad, Jacob, is very much not, but really reminds me of the stepdad from Pet Sematary 2.
Oh my God, he
What's
does.
his name? You know the guy. He's like a famous guy. He reminded me of him, and it like scared me. Like I think that's part of why I was scared of the Pet Sematary movies is because I like thought it was the same guy. Probably when I was like, however old I was.
Wow, this movie really got you like fucking deep.
It really, dude. It really did. Like, to the point that, like, a year later, I'd be at a sleepover party and hear, like, a clock ticking and be like, Mom, Dad, come pick me up.
Did anyone else at the summer party, was anyone else scared of the movie?
Great question. I never asked anyone, but right before I watched this, one of my best friends currently was one of my best friends at the time. Like, I've known her my whole life. And, I don't know if I'm going to be quick enough to pull up the text, but we usually like watch movies together, and I messaged her and she's like, what are you up to tonight? And I was like, oh, I got to rewatch this movie for this podcast, and I kind of filled her in. And then I was like, do you remember the movie we watched at Steph's sleepover party in grade 7? And she was like, yeah, good luck with that. I'm not coming over. Like, she was like, no.
Whoa.
So she was scared enough. Yeah, we'd like never discussed it. Oh, I don't know if I won't be able to find it on time. It won't be punchy, but she like replied back being like, no, I'm not coming over to watch that with you. Like, she didn't want to. I was like, nice.
Wait, that's incredible that, like,
too.
for years you did not speak of your shared fear of this film, and now you're like, no fucking way, will not be watching that with you.
I'm like, hey, ladies who are at Stephanie's slumber party, grade 7 or whatever, like, call in.
If anyone was there, if any of you listen to this podcast, let us know.
Let us know. Let us know if you were scarred for life by it.
The other thing that popped in my mind is earlier you were talking about how you were kind of hoping this movie would kind of fall into obscurity. I remember hearing about it on a podcast a few years ago because one of it might have been Shockwaves, I can't remember, because one of the hosts was talking about "It's About Time" and would just constantly say that quote. And then, was it last year maybe or the year before? Vinegar Syndrome actually made a box set of 4 of the lesser known Amityville horror movies, and this was one of them. So I actually own this movie on Blu-ray.
No,
I do.
Like, I believe you, but I'm like, I don't believe you.
It's in his house.
Yeah, they had like a whole collection of It's About Time, A New Generation, Dollhouse, and I think there's one other one.
I do.
The Evil Escapes.
I never saw the rest. I was like, I don't want more. I never saw any of the other ones.
Well, it's out of stock, so you can't buy it, unfortunately.
Oh, no. That's such a bummer for me.
I know, it's traumatizing.
That sucks for me because I was really hoping to watch it.
I could send you mine.
No, thanks.
I feel like Lindsay would run her own apartment house, whatever. In your house. You'd be like, nope, I will take 0 chances here.
0 chances. I don't want it anywhere near me. That is wild. I did not know that. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, it's more popular than I thought. Maybe there's like a whole like fan base. Like, y'all are suddenly gonna have like 200 more patrons or whatever that are just we're Amityville 1992.
I mean,
give us Amityville all the time.
We're in that era where I feel like that's the thing where people are like, oh, I love that like very specific, weird, like 5th entry in a franchise movie, and you're like, oh, what? Great, cool.
You're like, great.
The fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe there's like a whole fan base we don't know about.
Maybe.
One final point.
Okay.
Rusty turns into a baby.
Yeah, okay.
With a mullet.
Terry, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're saying.
The final 5 minutes of this movie is just like, what in the actual fuck is going on? Like,
and then she says, come to mommy.
Immediately, it was just like, I'm your mom now. I'm like, wait, what? The fuck?
Yeah, I don't know.
No. Well, so listeners, the climax of this movie, Jacob is attacking Andrea. Rusty goes to try to stop him from killing her, and then the clock just like turns back time, but only for Rusty.
No,
only it only turns back time for Rusty because Rusty becomes a fucking baby. And then
it de-ages Rusty for some reason.
With the mullet. And then tells the house, let him go. And then, like, he just runs out of the door.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And then...
he's a baby. What else is he going to do?
But then...
I don't know, Terry.
I don't know.
But then...
Run is not... I feel like, what do babies do? I'm not like, run. Yeah, they run.
Really?
That's like the last thing on my list of what babies do.
Run away from a fucked up clock.
Run. They run. They're really good sprinters. I don't know.
Is that not the lore around babies?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you the lore. I don't know. Maybe they do run.
But then the clock also turns back time to the beginning of the movie, which explains why she has the ruler.
Which is a banger. That
infamous
ending
ruler
is a banger, because she opens the door at the beginning of the movie and she's carrying this device that you're like, why is this woman carrying this thing? It's absurd. And then in the finale,
It sure is.
it's so good because I feel like it's so good. It makes you ask so many questions about space and time. I love that you mentioned the whole cosmic horror piece. It makes you ask so many questions about the space and time. And then also kind of makes the implication like, yeah, okay, you're like, okay, she beat the clock. The loop is over. But it kind of makes the implication that she might be like caught in this like loop.
Oh, and time loop things really freak me out because I'm like, how do you get out of it? What happens when you get out of it? I get into my own head about that. But then like she destroys the clock. So what happens? Like, is everything erased? Like, what's going on?
Well, it makes me wonder how many times this has happened to her.
Yeah.
Right.
Up until this point.
Because, like,
She
the
finally
presumption is that
destroys
it's
it.
already happened by the time the movie starts, but not because she wouldn't remember it. And in this timeline, she does remember it. Rusty, we don't know if he remembers it or not, but we think that he does. And we also think that Mrs. Wheeler remembers it because they have the, like, evil moment, which is a continuation of the conversation that they had earlier in the movie, but later in time.
Well, and it would also explain why she knows about the house.
Oh,
Shit.
I just thought of that as you guys were talking about this because I didn't even think about that the ending was that smart until just got this conversation. Like, oh no,
Look,
it actually
I'm going
is.
to tell you right now, this movie actually is smarter than I expected it to be. I'm just going to say that right now. I think it's actually pretty interesting. And once again, I know it's silly, but there's some cool shit going on here. That's all I'll say.
And it's pretty scary. And it was a reasonable reaction, Lindsay. Yeah.
One tiny last thing is the fact that Lisa, the sister, gets possessed and feels herself up through the mirror.
She does.
What the hell? This movie is just
And then
wild.
she gets a blowout in her hair.
Oh yeah, that means
She does.
that
And
means
a crop top.
you're sexual when you use a blow dryer and hairspray.
You're evil and sexual.
You're evil and sexual when
That's
you
the sign.
learn how to use hairspray. Anyway, do we want to wrap up and give this a rating out of 5?
Yeah, let's do that.
Am I first? Is that why you're looking at me?
No, I'm just laughing. Terry, how many Chekhov's T-square rulers out of 5 do you give Amityville 1992? It's about time.
I would like to give it 0 because I don't want to have any T-square rulers involved.
I'm going to start sending you T-square rulers in the mail with no label on them.
God. Oh my god.
I would do it, but
No.
I'm scared he would retaliate with a clock and I wouldn't recover.
I will. I have some very crafty people. I will have someone make that clock and I'll send it to you.
Not fun. It's not funny. You're not funny. You think you're funny? Think you're a funny guy?
Oh my god. Anyway.
Okay. So I actually
Sorry.
really enjoyed this movie. It's silly as hell. I was laughing throughout most of the movie because I was like, what part of this isn't the part that like traumatized you? And I was sitting there like wondering the entire time. There are some really effective sequences here. Like I said, I really like the squelching part. I thought that was like really gross and really like just unsettling. I think honestly, I probably would give this, I think I'd give it 3 Chekhov's T-square rulers out of 5. Cause this movie isn't great, but it's actually a lot of fun. And I think for the 6th entry in a franchise about a possessed house, you got to go weird. And this movie definitely went weird. So that's me. I think 3. What about you, Mary Beth?
I also give this 3 T-square rulers. I think, like I've said, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be any good, but I'm excited to watch it. And I actually was surprised at some of the, like I said, the cosmic horror elements and some of the scares were really interesting. And I just had such a good time watching it. And this is yet another instance of a movie that I never probably would have heard of without the podcast, but I'm so glad I have. Like, I'm so sorry, Lindsay, that it scared the shit out of you as a child, and that's what brought it here to us today. But
Makes it worth it.
I think that I was surprised at how smart some of the parts of this movie were and some of the really interesting things they do with it. I also loved all of the absolutely batshit crazy weird things going on in this movie. I just think it is a fun, weird time, and it's on Shudder, so everyone should give it a chance because it's an hour and a half and it's a good time. So I give it 3. Lindsay, you have the final word. How many T-square rulers out of 5, or Chekhov's T-square rulers out of 5 do you give this? I'm curious what your rating is going to be.
It's tough because part of me feels compelled to go like all the way to 5 to like justify my reaction to it. And then part of me also feels compelled to give it like a 1 to be like, get it, gone. So I think I kind of land in the middle. I think that if I were to be able to watch it objectively, which I will admit would be incredibly difficult, but if I did watch it objectively, I do think that like it does feel like a really, really banger direct-to-video movie, DTV movie, because it's really silly. Like, some of the gore gags don't work very well, but some of them are great. Like, there's so much. I really like when movies can, like, use their small budget well. It kind of plays out like, I mean, I don't know what the budget is, but I'm guessing. It kind of plays out like a single location horror, which I think is really neat. And, like, just simple things like putting yellow in the bandages to make it 10 times grosser. And all it is probably, like, yellow dye. Like, there's not even a great gore gag. It doesn't need to be. I think it does a lot of really smart things like that. And by, like, driving scares from something as simple as shooting a wall from 2 different angles and having different things happen on either side of the same wall, I think it's just, like, actually more clever than you'd expect from, like, a DTV kind of crappy scary movie. So I do think it's also like a 3. I think I'm gonna give it 3 what is it, Chekhov's T-squared rulers, because yeah, I think I'm on like the same page. It's just like surprising, but still it could also land anywhere between 1 and 5 because I don't know how I feel.
So is 3 like a C, like the grade I got in class?
Your revenge. Amityville. Okay, can we rename it? Amityville 1992 is about time, Terry's revenge.
Yes.
And so like, and like in the image of the house facade, we have to put like a superimposed T-square ruler between the windows.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Get on that, someone.
Terry's revenge. It'll be the T in the poster
my
designs itself.
God.
The poster designs
Holy
itself.
shit.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us to talk about Amityville 1992. It's about time, Terry's Revenge. I really appreciated being able to see this movie, so thank you. And I'm so honored that you bit the bullet and rewatched this movie for the podcast, because I know it was like eating at you before you made that decision. So thank you so much.
Yes,
but where can the
thank
listeners
you.
find you? And what do you have coming up you'd like to share?
Sure. I have to quickly, I know that I like probably pushed your runtime, but honestly, thank you, because this movie has been like haunting me my whole life. And this was a really unique opportunity to be able to demystify it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I said it to you in your email, and I mean it when I say it. I was like, if there's gonna be a reason, this is the reason to do it. So thank you. You guys have like something so cool going on, and it was really awesome that like it worked. I got to like demystify it for something as exciting as this. So thank you. That was awesome. Okay, me. I'm on the internet, Twitter and Instagram, at Smash Travis, but it's spelled SMASHTRAVES. So like Traves. Where can you find me? You can find me lots of places. Honestly, the best place to find me is on Twitter or following my link tree, because I am in a weird, intermediate phase in between moving from some places to another. But you can catch me on, where have I been recently? I was recently on IGN talking about Dexter.
You were. That was awesome.
Yeah! Dexter! So exciting. I will be talking about Dexter more other places because I love talking about Dexter. I wrote a cool piece on the Marvel lawsuit, Marvel copyright suit for Slash Film, which was really exciting for me, so you can find me there.
Side note, I love when you do those, like, because you did that for
so
the Friday the 13th. I love those. Those are some of my favorite things to read. So we'll throw some links out there in the show notes too, because I love it that you're combining, because you're a lawyer and you're combining your like day job with like your hobby. I think that is so fantastic.
Cool, yeah.
Thank you. That is so nice. Thank you. Like, that's really, thank you. I really love to hear that, because it's one of those things that like, it's such a thrill to be able to do it. And you're like, I hope people like it. So that's really cool. So thank you. Yeah, find me there. My movie reviews are mostly on Pajiba these days. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with Amityville 1992? It's about time. Did you see it? Did you love it? We would like to know, please. You can send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I'm at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please, while you're listening to this, especially if you're in iTunes, just, leave us a little rating and a review. Make sure you're subscribed. It kind of helps with the algorithms, so do it. I'm going to send Lindsay a clock.
Oh my God.
If you don't.
Jesus.
I'm going to be like, I need a list of your listeners. I'm probably not replaced.
Oh my
Sure.
God. And thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. And thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thanks everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there. But most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is the briefing room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.